This is a blue Christmas. What I loved about doing this, and we've done this before, where we take the pastes and the texture pastes, and we make, we make textured backgrounds and things with that. And then I like to do lots of layers. But what I liked about doing it in one color, or similar, I've got several colors of blue here. It was really fun to just play with the techniques, and also I found that when you're working with acrylics, of course, it gets messy. So little bits and colors just sort of go underneath the greeting card. So what I just did was some messy, scumbly kind of, I just figured, hey, when you make a mistake, or you get a boo-boo, you just make it like you meant it. So what I'm gonna show you today is, you can see the backs of this one. So in this one, I just kind of saw some imperfections, and I just went for that. I just thought, well, okay, so there's a little splotch there, and then there's one here. I can just make it look like it's supposed to be there. So what I've got I'm using greeting cards, blank. Here's another one. There we go. I'm using blank greeting cards, but if you just have some like cardstock, or even some old cards you want to cover up, I mean, there's all kinds of ways you can do this. But here we go with this one, the little splotches. I like these little things. So I'll just show you kind of what that process was and how I did these. This is with some of the paste I made last week with you, some of the glittery paste, and different pastes have different effects. So what you need, if you are going to do this with me, I'm hoping you can. It can be messy, so I'm going to prepare you. I put a piece of butcher paper down on my table because I do want to, and I'm going to roll up my sleeves. What I have is, I have this stencil, and I love this. I haven't used this. I mean, I've had these stencils for years, and I never used them, and I'm so glad I had them, because these are big, they're good sized ornaments, so that could actually be made, that can actually, be cut out and put on a tree. This is by the Crafters Workshop, just so you know. It's their 12-inch stencil, and I'm trying to look and see what item number it is. For next year, if you want to do something like this for next year, TCW 717. That's the item number. It's the beautiful ornaments. They even have a smaller one, but this one I like because it's nice and big, and I can make a really nice card. And I'm going to show you how I did that. And then I also have these Snowflake stencils, also by them. And that one's the snowflakes. I like these bigger ones better than I do the little ones. And that one is TCW 720, just in case you want to know. Crafters Workshop. They're the ones that make those stencils. They've been making them before everybody else was making them, and their stencils are just great quality. And I love these big ones because you can do all kinds of layering and stuff with them. So what else, if you have a stencil, if you don't have a stencil, you can still do some fun things. So no worries, just have your acrylic paints. So I've got my stencil. I'm going to move this stuff out of the way. I also have my texture, some gels this is from last week, the impastos and the glittery gels. Anything you have, texture paste. Oh, I know, I forgot I had a red one. I wanted to get grabbed because I remember making a red colored paste. I'm gonna use that today just for fun. Crafters Workshop also makes something called stencil butter. So mine is DIY stencil butter, but they do have that stuff, and it's gorgeous. And I'm gonna probably buy some because I'm loving the layers that I can create with these paints. And I'm also gonna just have blues, like different shades of blue. I've got some craft paint here, ceramic coat. Doesn't have to be expensive. You can just use any acrylics. Stick with acrylics for this project. Whatever you've got. I'm just going to use a little Payne's gray. I've got this interference blue I haven't used in a long time since I'm doing a blue theme. And I also have a little magenta to mix with some of the blues just to cool them down a little bit, because some of the phthalo blues can be kind of a little bit harsh. So I'd like that magenta will calm it down. Also found in my stash, I was like, oh, I found this. This is a pearl sparkle paint, and that's going to be fun to play with. It's really beautiful. And as you know, the golden snow, but hey, that they don't make that. But we were able to make our own by just mixing some glittery stuff. And anything you've got, sparkly, anything, layers, if you have any interference colors. And I am going to use a blank greeting card, but if you just have some Bristol, that's fine too. Another thing I like to use is just a little palette. I'm just going to use a wax paper palette, but whatever you have, just even a paper plate, anything. Another thing for the tools, I use this palette knife, but if you have a plastic one, any kind of scraping tool, stuff out of the garage, anything that you can do a scraping with is what you would need. It could be a spatula, but just something that has a rigid edge, whatever you've got. Glue spreader, anything like that. Credit card or an old credit card, not a current one. Hotel keys, things like that you can do for spreading. I also like to use bristle brushes, any kind. I mean, I have these. I love these. These are like they're sort of like stencil brushes, but they've got a nice. They're great for doing sort of scumbly, loose kind of fun textured paint surfaces. So I love these. But if you don't have this kind of thing, there's stencil brush. If you have an old beat up stencil brush, an old chip brush, anything you've got. But I think bristle brushes will work better than a soft hair brush. It's kind of what I'm trying to stress, is that a soft hair just is not going to handle the kind of beating we're going to do on these cards. And then some water. Another thing I like to do is I have sponges that I use to move paint around, to lift paint. So I'm going to use some sponges. And if you have them in your stash, which I know some of you do, baby wipes. I'm going to use those as well. They're not necessary, but have them if you want. I've got some water, a big cup of water with me on already as well. And now I'm going to get started and just I'll show you each process. I'll just do one card, but I also have some cards I've already gotten ready for the next. So this almost looks like a Starry Night. I don't know if you see that, but it's almost like the Starry Night thing, the way I moved it around on the card. So I want to show you this technique because I think it really works out great. The brush strokes here show real brush strokes, which isn't a bad thing, but I thought this was really nice. So I'm going to just show you different ways with pretty much the same colors. So you're not using a lot of different colors. So this one, what I like to do is I always try to keep my cards clean on the inside so that I can do a greeting. But if that doesn't happen, you could always paint and make things happen afterwards. So what I like to do is I'm going to just do this. I'm going to lay my card down. I'm just going to go kind of have it ready. Now, what I could probably do if I had some double-sided something, just to keep this from paint from oozing underneath. It's kind of hard to do, but I think the drier your brushes are, the less likely you're going to have seepage. But if you have seepage, just make it, turn it into something pretty. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start by squeezing out some paint. I'm just going to show you how I just did that swirly background. And I'm going to just try this blue acrylic. Oops, it needs stirring big time. It's definitely got more medium than it has acrylic in it. It's been a long time since I've used this. This is actually from a company called Nova Paints, and Nova makes a really nice, they make some nice acrylics, and they're not nearly as expensive as Golden. And if you really love acrylics, you may want to just check out Nova Color. And I think they're based out of maybe Oregon or California, I don't know, but on the west somewhere. And they're very good, very reasonably professional quality paints. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to just get this try to keep my table as clean as possible, which is kind of a joke, right, when we're playing with paints, but whatever. So if you have some deli paper, you can use that as something to paint on, and then you can use the deli paper later. Like this weekend when I was painting my little cards, this is the deli paper I used, and what I love is now I can start working. This can actually become a layer for like some printing and some other things, and then I can use that in collage or in other art forms. So if you have deli paper, go for it. Have it sticking underneath in fact, I'll use that one. So I'm going to go ahead and give this a try. And I'm going to use this brush, but if you have a stencil brush, something stiff, a bristly brush. And I'm going to do it kind of dry. I don't have this brush. It's not wet. I'm going to kind of do it. I'm going to pick up the paint. I'm not going to put too much on it, not too thick. And I'm just going to go around in a swirly kind of swirling motion. And I'm going to kind of go from the center of the card, working my way out. And I'm going to try not to get smudgy stuff underneath, but we'll see. I'm going to kind of mix up the blues a little bit. I've got the craft paint and the Nova color. Now the craft paint is very nice and saturated, and that was really cheap. That was only like a couple of dollars rather than, $6 or $8 for the other, the same color. It looks very much the same. I'm just swirling, and I'm gonna try to avoid that medium stuff. Now, like, I didn't put my gloves on. That's okay. I'm gonna get blue fingers. That's just what's gonna happen. So I'm just swirling. I'm gonna keep swirling, dry brush only, until I cover it. And I can mix up the colors. Let's say I want to add a little Payne's gray just for some dark contrast. I'll go ahead and just put some Payne's gray in there. Payne's gray is a beautiful blue gray color, and it really can darken and deepen some colors to become more like nighttime, just deep. It deepens it's a great mixing color too, and it makes everything really deep. So now I'm going to go in a different direction. I'm using my shoulder as a pivoting point. I'm going counterclockwise. No, this is clockwise. I was going counterclockwise before. And you can even change the direction, however you want to do it. But just the circular motion is going to really, with the dry brush, and you're trying to control a little bit. It's so thin that it's drying pretty much instantly. I just don't want globs of paint on my card. And that's going to help, or your background, whatever you're working on. If you're making a tag, if you're making something, the drier your paint is, the much more control you're going to have, and you probably won't have as much seepage underneath. And plus, you're not wasting much paint. You're not really, losing a lot. So this is nice and it's pretty. It's on there. I've got it pretty much covered, and I see a little white, but I kind of like that, so I'm going to let that sit. Now I'm going to look at underneath, and I'm going to see how that went. So with this, I had very little to no seepage at all. It was just clean as can be. And that's because I did that dry brush. Now see, there's a little over here. And sometimes it's fun to take, instead of it just being a perfectly, so clean, what I think is fun is to take a little of the color. And if you want to thin it, let's say you don't want it so saturated. I forgot to grab a thing. I'm going to grab it real quick. If you want to thin your colors, basically, use a little. What I'm going to grab is I've got a little gloss medium, and I've got some matte medium. So here's my gloss medium and matte medium. If I want to just thin the colors without using the water, because the water will, we'll do it in. So I'm just going to put a little bit of medium, pour a little bit right onto my palette, so I can mix and thin my colors without watering them down. And that's really the trick on these. You just want to avoid the water. The next time you want to use water is only when you're cleaning your brush. So I'm just going to thin my color with the medium. So there I got a nice thin color. And I'm just going to kind of go to see how I got a beautiful dry brush color with my medium. And that kind of I'll add some darker color just to make it. There we go. So I'm not adding water, and that's really going to make a difference in this whole thing. I'm making an atmospheric kind of background, and I don't think I'm going to just cover the whole thing. I just want it to be sort of soft. And I love this kind of technique. Years ago, back in the days when I was working in an art supply store, we were trained by Golden. Golden used to have faux finishing classes where we spent weeks learning how to do faux finishing, like how to make marble, how to do all these surface textures, how to make a wood grain. Here, I'm just going to let read. How to make stucco, or not stucco, what's that stuff called? Plaster. Granite, that's the word I'm thinking of. And it was a beautiful course. I mean, it was like, we did it for, I think it was an 8-week course or 12-week course. And we, as retailers, we learned how to do that. So there, I got the background, and I just love that unfinished kind of atmosphere background. And just only the little seepage happened right there. But you know, the fun thing I love, and I could leave it like that, or I could purposefully just make a soft, dry brush sort of circle, just to kind of look, make it look, there we go, dry brush blended, and now I've got this beautiful kind of soft background, and then I could do the same, just do the same thing on the edge of this, and kind of circle, 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 and just make it more concentrated at the center and have it fade out. And that gives something really different. Nobody's going to have a card like that. And that's just the background now. So I've got, and I can, yesterday when I was doing these, I made a bunch of them. And then that's the background. So however whatever you're using, if it's this kind of, you know, whatever colors you have, just do some soft blended backgrounds like that with swirls. And you could also do stippling. If you wanted to take if you have a brush that's flat like that, you can stipple it and create texture. You can make, your textures can go in one direction to make like a fake wood grain. I think this would be a fun thing to do. Maybe I'll have to pull out my notes from that course and maybe we could do some faux finishing on a paper. I think it'd be fun. This now I'm just going to use, now I'm going to put it in water, but I don't plan to use it again until, I'm just going to wash it later. And that's not, once it got wet, I mean, I'd have to dry it really well to get to that. So I'm going to put this over here. For now, my little palette of, that's actually ready to do I'm ready to do the next thing with it. Okay, so here's the fun part. I'm going to do, let's see, which one do I want to do? I'm going to do, I think I kind of like, I can either do the stars, or I mean, not the stars, I've got plenty of those, where I can do this. I think I'll just do this one. And you know what I like about this? It's a big enough stencil. If you have more than one card, which I do, I have this one here. It's a big enough stencil to do two cards on. So I'm going to just lay these down next to each other and just kind of put, so basically I've got my card fronts right here, and now I can do the next thing. So I'm going to take my stencil, I'm just going to lay it on, just kind of place it, doesn't matter, I guess they're all, there we go, right to here, like that. Or I want to find out which, there, I love this snowflake right there. So I'm going to just place it right there. And I normally don't tape this stuff down, I just kind of hold it. But if you want to tape these things down, just tape, let's do a quick one. You can take a little masking tape. And if you want to block out certain parts of the stencil, go right ahead and block them out. Like I'm just going to tape it right there just to kind of anchor it a little bit. And then tape it again. Oops, this tape is acting up. Here we go. And then I'm just going to put a little tape right there. So that just kind of keeps it from moving around. I'm going to keep it as flat as I can. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this gorgeous sparkly stuff that I made. Where is it? There it is. If you have white, just even white, a white paste would be fine too. Whatever you've got, because you can always add sparkle later if you want. And so like even the white, like the white texture paste that if you don't have color in it, you can still do this. But what I'm doing is I'm going to take a scoop of it, and I'm going to kind of decide how much I need. Don't need a whole lot, but there's whatever that amount is, it's a scoop. And I'm just going to start in this kind of hold it flat because I don't want it to go underneath the stencils. So I'm just going to start, and I'm scraping kind of like I'm frosting a cake. I'm going to just go across, and I really don't need a lot. It kind of just, as long as I push it into the grooves of the stencil, or not to the grooves, but into the space. And I'm like, it just lifted up, and that might be a problem. You want to get a nice sharp edge. And the way you do that is not by not letting it lift. And I just made it lift twice because maybe I should have taped it down. Maybe doing two is just a little too ambitious, but we'll see. I'm just going to do it, and this is where you take your time. You've got plenty of time, and it's not going to dry out really fast. It takes a little while, so just kind of go across the whole stencil, and if you need more stuff, go ahead and grab it. I do. And you really, a little kind of goes a long way. You can just keep moving it around on your stencil and your card and just kind of getting so that all the places are covered. And then you can keep scraping off the excess and putting it into the spaces of the stencil. Now, these are pretty wide open stencils, but you might have a stencil with really small openings, and that will change the way it also looks too. I'm just scraping it across, add a little bit more. You can always put it back if you find you had too much. I'm just going to go all the way to the edge of this stencil here. And it's like I'm frosting a cake. And it kind of has that, the angle of my stencil knife is about, it's like I don't know what it is. It's in an angle. It's not perfectly flat and it's not sticking straight up. And really, I don't have to be perfect, but I want to get everything in those spaces. So I'm going to get those in there. And I love this stuff. That's that stuff I made last week with the sparkly diamond dust. And this is where you just take your time. Get all those little places filled. And here we go. And I've got plenty of stencil paste that I'm going to be able to just move around on there until I see that I filled in all the little spaces, little holes in the stencil. If you don't get them all, it's still going to look interesting though. I just try to get them as much as I can. Because that goes definitely, it just makes it much more beautiful. And this stencil, or the butter color, or whatever the stuff I made, is so pretty when it dries. But this is your first layer. I mean, you may be doing more layers, and that's what I'll be showing you in a little bit. So now I'm going to put back the extra paste I don't need, put it back, seal it to the next time. And I usually like with a stencil knife, I just wipe it off with a baby wipe, just to kind of get it ready for the next thing if I'm going to do another thing. Now it's ready. And now I'm going to gently lift. I got to pick up this piece of tape and get that out of the way. And I'm going to get this piece of tape out of the way. Now I'm going to lift my stencil up, and hopefully I'll have 2 cards that I've done, which is really the first time I've ever done it this way. So we'll see how it goes. So I've got that. Oops, there's beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Okay, and there's that. Okay, so I'm going to sit this in the bath. Instead of going in a bath, the cat litter bath. And what I usually do is when this happens, I pick it up, I pick up the card, and I see that there's a little extra on the edge. Just wipe it off with your fingers, just so that you don't, because it'll dry kind of crispy. So just set it aside. So that is looking good. I'll just let that dry. And then this one I'm going to lift up, and I see a little stencil paste over here and also on the side. So I'm just wiping it off. Now I could have used something other than my fingers, but hey, that's what I do. So there's that. So that one's ready, and I can let that dry. Over myself. That's going to take about half an hour, 40 minutes, probably, or maybe longer. Depends on where you live. So that I'm going to just let those dry. Now these I have some stencil paste on, so I'm just going to wipe them off so I could still use the little, still use it. There we go. More glitter won't hurt. So I'll put these aside so they can dry without me intervening. And then I'm going to show you the next thing. All right. So for layering, I've got one more I want to do. Okay, I'm just going to do this one too. This one I wanted to do and I don't know what it's going to look like, but that I'd try, is I see this, one of these, I'm not sure which. Oh, they're so pretty. I'm just going to lay it onto my card. Just lay it right on there, center it as much as I can. And you can see there's a little stencil, or some of the stencil opening is showing. We don't want to get any paste on that. So what I do is I take a little Post-it note. I'm just going to paste it right over. Just there it is. Now it's out of my way. And now I'm going to put some of this stuff. It's kind of a red color. Hopefully to look good. We'll see. I don't know how opaque it is. We'll just see. Now I'm going to do the same thing. I don't see any area where I'm going to get it onto anything. So I'm just going to do the same frosty kind of frosting thing technique. This time I'm going to try to go a little deeper So I'm kind of going really carefully, and I'm not pushing too hard through the holes. I'm just kind of gentle. I want to make sure I got all those little all the little places, but I want them to be a little thicker than the normal that I normally do, because I want it to be totally opaque. All right, so I think I got it. There's a little spot that needs it. All right, so now I got to just kind of wipe off the excess and put it onto my, oops, there's a spot that I revealed. Don't want to do that. There we go. And I'm going to just take this off. I'm going to lift it carefully, and hopefully it will look really beautiful. We'll see. And there it is. I love it. I love the red. I think it's going to look amazing when it dries. And I can also do some layering once it dries. I'm not sure I'll have time to show you today, but I'm going to show you on some other cards. So I've got this. It's all done, and I could put a greeting here. I'm going to layer it with another layer of color. Most likely it will be interference blue, some transparent color once this dries, and then it will be done. I'm also going to do some different things to that side there, but at least got that. Could show you that. I'll set that aside. Okay, next thing. So I'm going to wipe this thing off. So you have to keep your tools in control. What happened to me yesterday. Oh, I had stuff everywhere, but I did have fun. So next thing. All right, I've got a piece to show you. Okay, here's a little technique that I like to share. Now, I'm going to use this one. I already put a pearl. It's just a plain blank card with no, I just put some pearl stencil paste through the stencil, and it's completely dry now. So now I can just have at it. And same, I'm going to take my paper and create a little barrier here. And I'm just going to lay it down like this on its, the whole, just lay it all down. And I'm going to use the same idea. I'm just going to do some color. Since I'm sticking with the blue theme today because I have blue paint out, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. So I'm just going to do some blue around the whole thing. And this paste, it's going to, you'll see what I'll do. So I'm not going to get it wet. I'm going to put some gloss medium, a little bit of that medium. Maybe instead of gloss, I'm going to use some matte, a little bit of matte. So I want to keep the shininess of that ornament. So throw a little bit on there just to thin it out a little, keeping my brushes dry. And I'm going to use a little of this, that's navy blue. That's probably going to be pretty, so I'll try that. And I'll mix it up with the gloss medium. A little navy blue with gloss. Oh, that's interesting. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to start, and I'm going to do my circle things, just like I right over that. I'm going to kind of go around. Oh, I like that color. It's a really brilliant. Now that's that ceram coat, and it's called navy blue. But wow, it's a very brilliant blue, almost like a phthalo blue. It's really interesting. And I have the matte medium because I wanted to retain the matte color. And I'm just swirling it over my. Oops, got paint on my hand. So just swirling. This is a lot wetter though than I'm letting it kind of be a lot juicier and wetter, but that's all right. I'm just going to go and kind of blend it all the way out. And I'm just going to get all those the color in the groove or into the fibers of the paper. And what's really important is when you're doing this, if you can keep this area, oops, I keep hitting the camera. You keep the top, your ornament needs to stay kind of moist. You don't want it to dry out too much. So I just keep putting color over it like this. Now I like the background. I think it's fine. I could put a little more blue, I think, right in here. Just kind of deeper, darker blue, and then let it fade. Yeah, just like that. Okay, so now I'm going to set this brush aside, and the next thing I do is you can take a baby wipe, trying that first. If you take a baby wipe or a damp sponge, and then when I say damp, you want to get it wet and then squeeze almost every bit of water out. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over the top of this with the wet or damp a damp, this baby wipe, and I'm picking up that paint that I'm going to try not to get outside the border too much, but work quickly, because this technique, there you go, just scrub right off of it. Scrub that extra paint off. So what I'm doing is I'm lifting the color off, and I'm using the baby wipe. Now, if I didn't use that, I could take my sponge. I'm going to show you how I do that. I wet it and I squeeze every single bit of water. And then after I've squeezed all the water out, now I've already squeezed all the excess water. But I'm going to still, on top of that, I'm going to take a paper towel and I'm going to even get out more of the water. So that's just barely damp. That's how you want to do that. You don't want it too wet. And I can just do the same thing using a sponge. Now this is drying really fast on my ornament, but it's all right. If you just keep working at it, you should be able to think all that time I was spending playing with the baby wipe, it's not coming up. So I'm going to try it again with my baby wipe. Maybe that's going to work better. So, yep, I can actually remove it, but it did dry. So I'm kind of stuck with this ornament that is not going to, the paint's not coming off. So there's probably ways to get it if I just keep it moist. Eventually the paint will come off. Now, some stencil pastes will be a lot smoother than the one I have. This has a lot of glitter in it, so it may be just grabbing onto the, it's grabbing, but it's still coming off. So I'm just going to be patient and kind of rub. As long as I don't want to rub onto the card, because then I'll just rub the paper off. So but on the acrylic part, yeah, I can rub that and get all that off. And I've lifted, pretty much just getting there. So just be patient and keep moistening it until it dissolves, until that acrylic paint comes off, and it does. It will come off. It just needs a little, this one especially, this particular stencil paste that I made, who knows, I don't know what I put in it. Might have put baking soda in it, and that could have made it harder to lift the color, but that's how you do it. And then just rotate your baby wipe or sponge so that you can get that color off as much as you can. I mean, you can still have little leftovers of color, and that's fine. You're not scraping it off. That works too. Scraping it with my finger. So I'm going to get that little part so I can see. Just using the back of my thumb nail, and it's lifting it off, which is nice. And you can do it as much as you want it lifted, or you can leave little bits of like blue on it. However you want to go with this. I just kind of wanted to show you that yes, you can brighten up and bring that color back just by lifting, getting it moist and doing that. And so if you have your baby wipe or a wet sponge, just keep the color. Like here, I've got a fresh one, and I'm just going to do it some more. And this is a process, it's like buffing your silverware. You just kind of work it until you get to the effect you like. And I like having a little extra blue on it. I think it's pretty. But if I wanted to keep working it, and I don't want to go too deep, I'm kind of scrubbing inside there. I can see I've kind of scrubbed off some of that paint. So what I could do then later is take my brush and just go inside those grooves. I'm not going to worry about it right now, but there it is. That's the one. Of course, I could go ahead. Let me grab a little brush while I'm thinking about it. Just going to grab a little, if I can find one, a small watercolor brush. There it is, something. Okay, so that's really probably not the best thing, as I'm using a nice watercolor brush for acrylics. That's a bad thing, but I just kind of wanted to show you, if you do rub off a little bit, just go inside the groove of inside where the stencil was, or you can even lay the stencil over it and do it, but you can fill it in. Or if I wanted to take the Payne's gray, just for fun, and take some of that Payne's gray. Not much, I don't need much. And I'm going to just put a little Payne's gray just to really darken that kind of highlighter, low light, this area that I rubbed off. Here, I'll do the same thing, right? And maybe I'll just make it look like this was intentional, the whole thing. Just not the whole thing, but just little bits and pieces, and I'll just rub off excess. Same here, I'll just do a little spot there to make it kind of look like it was intentional. Here's where all the little places where the dots are. And what you could do when you do this, and if you do it immediately, you could rub off that excess if anything gets on your ornament. You can always, here's a little spot that I just got some metallic on, which I think is kind of pretty. So, so who knows where that came from? Oh, it came from underneath. There we go. So now I can just kind of create those little, get back those lowlights. And here I kind of, there's a little glitter. There, it's off now. Okay, so there. I could also bring it, maybe do a little bit up here just to kind of show off that top. And, you know, just kind of play. Make some shadows if you want. But just play. Of course, whatever you have. You don't have that ornament, I understand. You probably don't have that. But then what I could do is later is I could take some glitter, stickle glue or glitter glue. I could add some more glitter and shine to that. But right now, I'm going to take a look here on this side. There's not a lot of smearing, so I think that one's really fun. And if I wanted to add a little pearl paint, like just something, a highlight of color, I'm going to put that in there. I'm just going to take, let's see which one. Maybe some pearl sparkle. I don't know. I've not used this paint. I have no idea. I mean, I think I tried it once, and it's pretty white, so I'm not sure how opaque it's going to be. It looks pretty opaque. But I may just leave that alone for now, because I like this, just like this. Or I could do a little interference blue. Well, I think that's what I wanted to show you. Okay, so I'm going to take some interference blue. I'm going to take a very small amount, and I'm going to go with my stencil brush, because I just wet the other brush. And take my stencil brush, and I'm going to just use a very little amount. I'm not overdoing it. And I'm going to just, same thing, kind of go sort of in a circular motion. I'm going to go around my card just to give it some sparkle. So you can just layer. This one's, I'm not doing much here. I'm just putting a little bit. You can also use a sponge if you wanted to just use your sponge to do it. And the interference blue is a translucent color. It doesn't show really unless it's on a dark color. I don't know if you can see it, but I've got it. Here we go. There's some glitter I just pulled off. It's gonna get messy. I knew it would. And just kind of scrubbing over the whole thing a little, just here and there, just to give it some layering. And then I'll add, there we go. See, I think you can probably see that. It's starting to kind of come around. And I'll just bring it down here. There we go, like that. You can also stipple like this. Stencil, oops, messy. Stencil brushes are amazing for not just putting through a stencil, but you can make textures on your paper. Same way. So there it is. I love that one. And I'll put some here just to finish it off. I might as well while it's here. I'm going to stick some of this crystal. It's called Stardust. It's the stickles, and I'm going to put a little bit. If I can get it to come through. Stick a little bit right in these little round. Here we are. Just to kind of just to finish it off, just making a circle of glitter glue. If you just have glitter, that's fine. Anything, glitter, just something to finish it off. There we go, like that. I think that's going to be really pretty. And then I could put a greeting. Well, this one I don't think I'd put a greeting. I'm just going to leave it as is. I'm getting more white paint on it, so I have to keep rubbing it off. But with acrylics, you can do so much. It's much more durable than if you just were doing watercolor. Okay, so now I'm going to set that aside. That one's done for now. And now I'm going to find another one I wanted to show you. Another little trick. Here I've got this one. That's pretty much it. But I'm going to do another kind of a layering thing with you. Now this one, I'm going to do something a little crazy. I'm going to use a little turquoise because it's just pretty. And I'm going to show you how I kind of turn, we get that to go, we tone it down. So I'm going to use a brush this time because I ran out of my other brushes. And I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to keep it dry. And this time I'm going to go around it first. And I'm just kind of going brush strokes in all different directions because if I don't, it'll look it just needs to look kind of random. I've got a little bit on the edge there, but that's okay. Just going to go all the way around. Dry brush. This is where you play. You just don't, you just want to play. And if I'm just kind of trying to change the direction of my brush strokes. And I'm going to go ahead and just go on in there. Heck with it. I'm going to really push that color into the ornament, but this time I'm going to try to rub it off sooner than later. Because I was a little slow on the move there. So while I'm doing this, there we go. The reason I've got this, I wanted to show you this turquoise. So when you do the interference color afterwards, you can change the whole tone of it. It's amazing. So there it is in different directions. And now while I'm doing it, while it's still wet, I'm going to rub off this turquoise. So there we are. Now you can see how easy it comes off while it's still doing it while it's wet. It's the best time to do it. I'm just taking my baby wipe and I'm going to go around and lift that color. And just rotate as you go around. If you don't like, you can just use your sponge too. This, I don't have to lift all of that off. I'm just going to lift most of it and give it like a little, kind of so it has a dimension to it. Lift the center out and there. I've got that. It just brings back highlights, which is really nice. And I'm just going to take my sponge and kind of just detail it a little bit. There we go. Now I like that one really quite a bit. And so you can see a little spot that I need to just kind of use my finger to bring the highlight back that, or you can, any kind of tool, but however you want to do that. Now the next thing is I'm going to take my interference blue. I'm going to go over the whole thing. I'm going to just take some right there. And I'm going to take what's left of my brushes. They're all getting. All right, I'm going to use my stencil brush because that's what I've got left. And the interference blue is transparent, except for the reflective quality. So I'm going to go over the whole thing, just the whole thing. And you'll still see the highlight of the ornament, but it's changing the tone of the turquoise, and it's now becoming a really gorgeous, I don't know, crazy beautiful blue. I'm just loving this. I love just getting my hands and dirty and my exercising my arms because it does take a lot of, you're moving yourself, you're getting your energy, you're getting lots of energy being used up while you're doing this. Building a sweat. It's so energetic. There we go. And I just did it in all these different directions. And then if I want to, I can add, while I'm at it, I've got this pearl paint. I'm just going to stick it over my ornament and see what happens. Just a little dry brush in circular motions. There I go. Leave it like that. And then lastly, I'm just going to wipe off again a little extra paint off that, just to bring back the highlights of my ornament. All right, so that one's that one. I'll let that sit. It's done. I could also add stickles, glue. This one would look really pretty with maybe some stickies right in the center here, maybe up here, here, and here. And that is my card. So there it is. Oh, maybe I'll put some up here too. Just cause. More glitter is better. So there it is. That's what I wanted to show you. Just some basic kind of layering and stumbling. Now this one, look at the mess I made on this card because I've got everything everywhere. So what I'm going to do is, this is still, it has a lot of it's not bad. It's kind of pretty, but then I see it also in the back. So I'm going to take this. I'm just going to do it like I meant it. This is going to grab there's another brush I have. It's a stencil brush, kind of an interesting kind of material. And I'm going to take my phthalo turquoise, really super dry. And I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to just kind of make little blended sides. Whoops. This one's going inside underneath. I'm just going to do it. Just kind of make, kind of fun little areas here of color. Now, This one isn't soft as the other one. I'm going to try it with a sponge just for fun. I have not tried it, but I'm going to try it using a sponge, like even this kind of sponge. It's like a car washing sponge. So if you take your paints, dip it, dry brush it. Let's see how that looks. Okay, so I'm going to just use a sponge this time, and I actually can get nice blends just by using that sponge, which I like. And I don't know what I did with that blue paint, that interference paint, but I'm going to grab that, put some of that on, and really haven't used much paint today. If you keep it in the same color range, you can use little, not a lot of paint, because you're actually using that dry brush. I've got it. That's really pretty. I like that. I'm just going to do a little splotch there, just to make it creative and artistic. I mean, one of a kind. No Hallmark's going to make these, right? And then you can put your signature. If you have a signature shop, you could put your signature. Now here's a little spot that I saw, a little boo-boo, so I thought, I'm just going to make it look like it meant it. And this side, it looks, I can't really mess with it because I have glitter on it, but later on I will do a little border of this just by blending with my sponge on the edges. You can do that with all of them. Like this one's not dry yet, but I was going to show you a way to layer also on this one. So I'm going to wait. That one's not dry, so I'm going to find one that is and kind of show you. Here we go. Here's a dry one. So this one is nice, but it could use a little oomph, it could use something. So I'm just going to put some of the color I have left on my palette because I don't want to waste any. And I'm going to grab it and take my sponge and just gently kind of go over. I don't want to do it very dry, kind of random way. I'm taking that. Your sponge may get ground up because I'm on the stencil paste, but sponges aren't expensive, so you can do that. And now I'm kind of highlighting that, making this a little bit more interesting with the interference blue. It's kind of taking that really dark background and brightening it up a little bit. So I'm going to let that be. I like that. I'm going to let that sit. I think I've got another one here I want to do the same thing to. I can find it. There it is. And this one I think is really pretty too, but it just needs that little bit of just some more sparkle, but very subtle, very dry brush or dry application. So you're not going to have any globs of any paint. It's just soft, blended areas. So you can see how that's starting to really shine. If you have anything like metallic paints, those will do it. But if you don't have that and you just want to make soft blended backgrounds, that's how you want to do that. But just making those circular motions and kind of, going. You can see I didn't cover everything. I just went very lightly. I'm loving this background. Almost looks like a I don't know, atmosphere thing. And then you can sign. What I usually do is I sign my cards, or I'm going to use my seal stamp this time because I got it. And I think it will look really cool in a red color, because it's a holiday card. And you can take your stamp pad, and you can just, there you go. This one I think would be pretty. And then it's done. And then it's totally, there we go. Just a little touch back there, and there, it's done. So anyway, I hope that you're having fun making whatever backgrounds, if you're just making a gift tag, or if you're making just textured papers so that you can use them later. Just have fun playing with the paints and getting your hands dirty like that.